In this session, we're going to have a look at how you can achieve question logging by using Gomo's display conditions. So, by default, when you create an assessment in Gomo, it will automatically put in the standard navigation buttons here, like the next button. So when I have a question, the learner can choose to answer the question, but they can also automatically just choose to move on to the next question without actually answering it. So what I want to be able to do is to prevent them moving on until they've actually answered the question. So let's have a look at how we do that. So if I just go into my assessment topic here and go to the first question that I want to log. So the first thing that I want to do is to remove the next arrow, so to prevent the learner from being able to move on. And I do that by making sure I'm looking at the screen properties here on the right-hand side. I go down to the navigation and tracking section and click Configure. And here I can switch off the next button there. So I just uncheck the shown button there and click Apply. And just click Save. And let's just quickly preview that to see how that looks. So I'm just making sure I'm just previewing question 1. So click Preview at the top left. And here we go, just loads up the preview for that particular question. So now I have my question, but I haven't got the next button. So I can't actually move on to the next question yet. So that's the first step. But now I want to give some kind of mechanism so the learner can move on once they've answered the question. So what I do now is just go back to my editor. And what I'm going to do is to add in a next button here. So I've got a content block. I'm just going to divide that. In fact, I'm going to divide that into 4 columns because I want to put my next button on the right-hand side here. So what I do is go to my Assets tab, find a button, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into there. Let's change its label so it says Next. So now I have my button, but I don't want that button to appear until the learner has actually answered the question. So by default, it would just appear as soon as the screen as soon as the screen itself appears. But what I can do here is to apply a display condition. So only display this when something has happened, in this case, that they've answered the question. So I make sure that I'm looking at the button properties here on the right-hand side, and I just click on Display Conditions. And now I click on Add a Display Condition. And just click the list here and select the display condition that I want. So remember that display conditions enable us to do things like only show things when we're looking at something, say, on a smartphone and so forth, or when a variable has a certain value. But what I'm going to select here is, in the first instance, is the asset interacted. So what this is doing is saying, well, once the learner's actually done something on the screen, then I'm going to display this particular thing, in this case, the button. So I'm going to say asset interacted, and now I can choose the things I have in this topic, and here it's the multiple choice question here. And when that's true. So when the learner's interacted with my multiple choice question, then display this button. So I just click on Update Display Conditions. Let's just save. And once we've saved that, let's just go back to the navigator. We're on question 1. So let's just preview that question again and now see what's happened. So click on Preview. And here we go. So again, I can't move on here, but now I can answer the question, click Confirm. So I get my feedback here. And now notice, since I've answered the question, my button now appears. But at the moment, this button doesn't actually do anything. So I've got the correct display conditions, but now I need to be able to make this link to the next screen. So let's just go back into here, go back to our button, and now I need to attach an action to that. So look at the button properties on the right-hand side, select Actions, click on Add an Action. So what do I want to happen when the button is clicked? I want to link to a screen. And now from the list, I just select the particular screen that I want. And there we go, it's going to be my next question, the select from list question. And let's just save that again. Topic saved. Let's just go and refresh our preview screen. And here we go, we have the question. So just answer the question, click confirm, get the feedback. Our next button appears. Now when I click next, it moves on to the next question. So that is the simplest way to get question locking. But let's just take this a step further, that I might want to actually control the flow of the navigation depending on whether the learner has actually got the question right or wrong. So I could say that, well, if they get it right, then I want them to go on to the next question. But if they get it wrong, then I want to take them back to maybe review the actual topic that the question relates to. So what I can do here is, first of all, I'm going to modify this display condition on the next button to say, well, you can only move on if you've actually got it right, not just whether you've answered the question in the first place. So now I just click on the next button, go to the display conditions, and now I'm just going to remove this original display condition. And I'm going to add in another one. And this time I'm going to use the asset correctness. So whether I've actually got the multiple choice question right or wrong. So select asset correctness, select the thing that I'm looking for. It's my multiple choice question here. And here whether that's going to be true. So I can also detect whether it's going to be false as well, which we'll use in a moment. So if the multiple choice question, if they get it right, then show this button. So what I also need is another button here to say, well, if you get it wrong, then to show a button saying review. So what I'm going to do here is add in another button. And I'm going to add it into the same position there. Let's give it a label. And I'll just, for example, call it review here. And let's add a display condition to that. So let's click on display conditions for that button, add a display condition. And again, I'm going to select asset correctness and to say, well, if the question, if they get this wrong, so if its correctness is false, then show this button. So the learner will either see this button, the next button if they get it right, or this button if they get it wrong. So they won't see both of them on the screen at the same time. And now what I need to do is here, for example, add in an action to the review button to say, again here, that if they click on this button, I'm going to say link back to to my first topic that might relate to this particular question. So let's just save this. Topic saved. Just go back and I'm just going to refresh my preview. Here we go, just load this up. So here's my question. So let's have a look at what happens here. So if I get it wrong, click confirm, I get the feedback. And now I get my review button, and that will then take me to wherever I've linked that button to. Let me just reload and check that we have the right thing if we get it right. So again, we have the question, we have the screen locked still, and if I get it right, click confirm, feedback, and now we get the next button rather than the review button, which takes us forward. So again, using display conditions here, then we can control the flow of the course. And in particular, we've looked at both locking the screen by removing that next navigation button, but then introducing our own navigation flow by adding in the display conditions to the buttons on this main screen here, where we've detected both whether the learner gets the question right or whether they get it wrong, and we have the appropriate actions attached to those buttons. So that's display conditions for question locking.